A single name on a Vatican webpage just ignited a firestorm of questions. Why does the Diocese of St. Gallen keep stirring the Catholic world? It began, as many seismic shifts in the Church do, not with a thunderclap or a blaze, but with a whisper. A single, unassuming line tucked into the Vatican's website under Resignations and Appointments, dated May 22nd. Routine. Clerical. The kind of bureaucratic update most people scroll past without a second glance. Bishops retire, new ones are named, and the Church, as it has for centuries, moves forward one quiet, deliberate decision at a time. But this time, something was different. For those who track these changes with a discerning eye, who know the names and places that carry weight, one line stood out like a spark in dry grass. The Diocese of St. Gallen, Switzerland, and the appointment of Father Beat Gmür Grogli as its new bishop. The wording was neutral, as Vatican announcements always are, stripped of drama or flourish. Yet, for some, the mere mention of saint. Gallen sent a ripple through the faithful, not panic, not scandal, but an unmistakable flicker of curiosity. Why? Because St. Gallen is not just any diocese, and in today's Church no appointment is ever entirely without consequence, not in an era where every choice feels both pastoral and symbolic, a potential signal in a world of cultural tension, ecclesial fractures, and a faithful yearning to discern who to trust. St. Gallen is a picturesque corner of Switzerland, set against a backdrop of rolling hills and a heritage as ancient as the Church's presence in Europe. Its namesake, St. Gall, an Irish monk, planted the seeds of Christianity there in the 7th century, leaving a legacy of scholarship and faith that endures in its famous abbey and library. But in recent decades, this diocese has taken on a different kind of gravity. A story once whispered, now theorized, debated, and dissected has attached itself to this place. Some call it history, others conspiracy. It's the tale of the saint. Gallen Group, a gathering of bishops and cardinals in the 1990s and early 2000s, figures like Cardinal Carlo Maria Martini and Cardinal Walter Casper, who met to discuss the Church's future. Depending on who tells the story, they were either a collegial circle of thoughtful pastors seeking renewal or a secretive faction with progressive ambitions, even labeled a mafia by their critics. Books, interviews, and biographies fuel the debate, with some claiming their influence shaped papal elections, while others dismiss it as overheated speculation. We're not here to confirm or deny those theories, nor to unravel every thread of the saint. Gallen legacy. We're here to ask, why does this diocese, this name, still capture so many eyes? Why does the appointment of Father Grogli to this particular place feel like more than a routine personnel change? This isn't really about geography, it's about memory. The memory of debates not yet settled, of ideas that still pulse with life. St. Gallen has become a symbol, a shorthand for theological currents and pastoral approaches that some see as vibrant engagement with modernity, others as a drift from orthodoxy. When Father Grogli's name appeared, it tapped into something deeper. Who is he? What does he stand for? And why does his appointment to this emblematic diocese matter? For those who love the Church not merely as an institution, but as a spiritual family, a mystical body, these appointments are never just administrative. They are matters of direction, tone, and emphasis. One bishop can shape the culture of an entire diocese for decades, sending ripples through seminaries, schools, homilies, and homes. The Church insists that doctrine remains untouched, but its interpretation lives in the shepherd's voice, in what is emphasized, permitted, or met with silence or boldness. So, the question begins to grow. What will this new shepherd bring? Many Catholics had never heard of Father Beat Gmür Grogli before this week, and that's not unusual. Most priests, even those in prominent roles, remain anonymous to the broader world. But this moment changes that. His appointment makes him a figure of significance, not celebrity, but weight. People will dig into his past, his writings, his interviews, his associations. Some will find reassurance, others unease, and most will grapple with something more complicated, an uncertainty that mirrors their own. Because in truth, Catholics today live with questions they feel they aren't allowed to ask. About change, about doctrine, about what can shift and what must endure, about how to love people in tension with church teaching, about how to reconcile mercy and truth. When a bishop who has touched on these tensions, even gently, is appointed to a place like St. Gallen, it reopens that longing to understand. Is the Church changing? Is it listening more carefully? Or is something deeper being re-examined? Father Grogli, born in 1970, brings a resume that is in many ways exemplary. Educated in Rome, with studies in theology and psychology, he was ordained in 1998 and served over a decade in parish ministry. Since 2013, he has been the parish priest of Sion, Gallen's cathedral, and, more recently, the dean of the diocese. Those who know him describe a gentle leadership style, rooted in compassion and intellectual openness. He's not known for fiery speeches or hardline stances, but for listening, for conversations, for walking with people. His background in psychology suggests a focus not just on what the Church teaches, but on how those teachings are lived, especially by those on the margins. In 2015, he contributed to a volume on the diversity of family life in the Church, exploring topics like civil remarriage, cohabitation, and same-sex partnerships, not with defiance, but through the lens of pastoral care. His writings have touched on blessings for same-sex couples, a topic once fringe, but now part of broader theological discussion, especially after recent Vatican documents framed such blessings as pastoral accompaniment, not sacramental equivalence. On contraception, too, his contributions suggest an openness to how church teaching meets modern realities. There's no indication he seeks to overturn doctrine. Rather, his tone raises questions about how teachings are received, applied, and lived in a world where family structures and sexual ethics are in flux. For some, this posture is concerning a potential erosion of clarity. For others, it's necessary, reflecting attentiveness to the conscience and complexity of the faithful. Grogli's approach seems to embody the synodal way of listening and learning, more common in places like Switzerland or Germany, where Catholic identity exists in pluralistic, evolving cultures. This raises a persistent question. What does it mean to minister faithfully in a church that is both ancient and modern, guarding a 2,000-year-old tradition while accompanying those who feel alienated by it? Some say the Church must remain unwavering in doctrine, speaking with clarity. Others argue it must be pastoral, speaking with mercy. Grogli seems to navigate this tension, not resolving it, but living in it honestly. Those who know him describe a man more interested in discernment than declarations, yet his elevation to bishop brings those conversations into the public sphere. Every word, every past publication, every association will be weighed. Does his theological curiosity signal a shift in doctrine, or a commitment to understanding people where they are? These questions aren't rhetorical. They lie at the heart of the Church's current debates, asked not just by critics, but by faithful Catholics longing for integrity, clarity, and care. Every bishop faces these tensions, but in St. Gallen, they feel amplified. The diocese's history of theological engagement and pastoral adventure makes it a lightning rod for scrutiny. So, when Grogli's name appeared, the discerning asked, "What does this mean? Not just for St. Gallen, but for the universal Church. Is it a signal of pastoral flexibility, theological diversity, continuity under a new face, or something entirely different? We may not know yet, and maybe that's the point. Maybe it's not time for conclusions, but for watching carefully, praying deeply, and staying open to what unfolds. The Church moves slowly, but when it does, it's felt more than seen. This could be one of those moments. Beneath the debates, there's a deeper question. What kind of church are we becoming? And behind that, another. What kind of saints will be needed next? The faithful in St. Gallen, like those everywhere, live these questions daily. They baptize their children, pray the rosary, and navigate a world that prizes dialogue and autonomy. Some crave homilies that connect the gospel to modern issues. Others yearn for preaching that reinforces timeless truths. Both desires are valid, yet their coexistence creates a spiritual ambivalence, a faith lived in tension. This isn't unique to St. Gallen. It's mirrored globally. Catholics everywhere grapple with personal conscience and public teaching, trusting their priests while feeling conflicted when pastoral voices seem to waver. They long for a church that speaks clearly, yet listens deeply, that offers truth and mercy, fidelity and welcome. So, here we are, at the beginning of a conversation. A single name, a quiet line on a web page, but perhaps beneath it, something stirring. The real question isn't just what this appointment says about St. Gallen, it's what it asks of us. To listen, to pray, to wonder, what kind of church will we be? And as we ponder that, we're invited to something more, to pray for Grogli, for the Pope, for priests, for the faithful. To pray not for victory or vindication, but for grace. Because in the end, it's not about headlines or theories, it's about discipleship, about trusting that the Church, even in its complexity, still belongs to Christ. The door is still open. Let's walk through it, not alone, but together.